Good evening. Very warm welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show and our usual weekly roundup of all the weekend's action. I'm Chris Bell, and as always, I'm joined by our ever-present Steve Downs, Lewis Sale, and Gareth Walker. A little bit later on, Jason Booker will be joining us as well to talk all things Leeds United on what has been, well, let's be honest, on the whole, not a great weekend for most of the West Yorkshire side. It has to be so when you look at the likes of Leeds, Bradford, Huddersfield, and Halifax. But joining us once again, as he did last week, with the feel-good story, really, of the weekend, is Rizwan Mohammed, the manager of Albion Sports. Riz, thanks for joining us once again.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You have, as I say, the feel-good story. Yourselves and Bradford Town in particular, the two sides that made it through into the final of the Northern Counties East League playoff final, which is next weekend. And it was the Battle of Bradford. We talked about it last week over Campion, and you came out on top.
Yeah, but what a whirlwind of a week, to be fair. We actually played the game without a recognised goalkeeper in net, so I guess all the luck was on our side on the day, to be fair.
Beauty of non-league football, eh?
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. Didn't want to change my schedule, so I had to come on a Monday again, so...
Hey, it worked for you last week.
Yeah, it did.
Go on then, Riz. Obviously, no recognised goalkeeper, and Campion didn't have one for about 45 minutes either. Did it go how you expected? I mean, it was a really tight one at first half up until the red card, and then obviously the game dynamics changed a lot.
Yeah, I think what it is with Campion, we know them. I mentioned last week we know them quite well. They've scored, don't quote me on it, but I think they scored 103 goals in the league, so they were the league's highest goal scorers. The one thing that we did recognise is from a defensive point of view, they were just below mid-table. I think they're 12th in the league in terms of the amount of goals that they concede. So all week really, we were working on. We looked at their last performance, which you mentioned last time, where we actually lost 4-1. But I think it was more of we let ourselves down on that occasion more than we were outplayed or anything like that. We didn't deal with the crosses into the box. We didn't deal with second balls in and around the box. They were just reacted a lot quicker. They had a bit more energy than us. And in all fairness, we learned from those kind of mistakes and knew that if we were defensively sound, which we have been all season, to be fair, I think we had like the third or fourth best defensive record in the league. If we knew that if we keep a clean sheet, we're good enough to potentially like nick a goal or cause them problems. And I think we did that throughout the game. Even in the first half, when they had 11 men on the pitch, it looked like they had 2-3 chances cleared off the line. Listen, a lot of our lads were claiming handball but it's tough to see. I don't know if it was. I can't sit here and say, it was definitely a penalty, because I couldn't see there were that many bodies involved. And in all fairness, I think a massive credit must go actually to the referee. He was only a 17-year-old young lad, but I thought he handled the occasion quite well, to be fair. But yeah, I think the red card obviously changed the game massively, and 2 teams without a goalkeeper in it. What a way to play a playoff semi-final.
just a little bit. And it did obviously that, for those listening and watching, Campion's goalkeeper got sent off just before half-time. And what did that change the cliche of the half-time team talk, Riz, in terms of being patient and creating opportunities, or almost the game plan is to almost, get those 2 early goals in the second half and make it comfortable?
I think I just knew that, listen, if we played really well in the first half, obviously I'm going to be biased, but I think we probably had the slightly better I think we did have the better chances. I don't think I think they had 1 shot on target, which was an attempted bicycle kick from Brado's, the centre half, and I don't think that really counts, to be fair. He'll kill me for saying that, but I think I was quite patient, and our message at halftime was just keep believing in yourself and just keep doing what you're doing. Don't make silly mistakes now, and this is not where we kind of take our foot off the pedal thinking that we're we're playing against 10 men or anything like that. Nothing changes. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's people don't realize it's really, it is, obviously I teach students, so I've got I teach the students down at Farsley Celtic, the 16, 17-year-olds, the scholars, and sometimes they watch our games back and they look at it and they're like, it's a lot of long ball stuff, and I do explain to them, like, what you don't realize is the surfaces that you play on. You can't actually the ball down and play football. It's not that pitch. So yeah, eventually I think Lewis Waddington was absolutely fantastic, to be fair. He caused them problems all day, and eventually he was rewarded with a assist. I think both goals that came from him, to be fair, because of how tenacious he was all game.
Yeah, I mean, you must have read my man, because I gave him man of match myself. I thought he led the line really well for you. And also, it wasn't helped by, obviously your situation in goal, but, Robbie Fox had to come off injured as well, one of your talisman. And that, again, is another potential blow, but you just seem to just deal with it and see the game out.
Yeah, well, I think with Robbie, we knew that it was a bit of a risk taking him into the game, because last game of the season, he obviously came off injured as well, and he has been recovering, and he felt his hamstring. It was it was a little bit tight, and there was no need. He's a young boy. He's got a lot of years ahead of him yet in terms of football. There's no need to take unnecessary risks. But yeah, I think over the last, probably the back end, I think there is a bit of a case of Robbie having, like last season, he only played about 12 or 15 games because of little niggly injuries he picked up here and there. So this year it's a complete contrast, where he's played 45 games all year, and I think it has kind of caught up to him. And unfortunately for him, we have, and I don't think people realise this, but we have had a huge injury crisis all season, particularly in the forward line, and we've had to rely on him a lot. So it's nice to see that, we don't have to rely on him on this occasion, and the old dog in Ashley Flynn's able to come off the bench and do what he does so well. And we know what Ash is about, and I think it works well, to be fair, because obviously he's not getting any younger, and sometimes 90 minutes week in, week out. And he put a tweet out this weekend saying, I think he was at Wakefield and he wasn't getting enough game time. Then he went to Hallam and he wasn't playing like regularly enough and not getting game time. Since he's coming to Albion, he's almost started every game. I think he must have started 2 or 3 games on the bench. But such a goal scorer like him, you can't really not be playing him. So yeah, he was fantastic when he came on. Did Ash, to be fair, the experience showed.
Going in is Saturday, big playoff final. Chance to get promoted against Garforth, who went on penalty against Rossington Main. It's going to be a tight one, isn't it? One to look forward to, though.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I know Paul really well. I know Marsha really well, and in all fairness, they've thoroughly deserved it. I actually genuinely feel outside Emily, they were back end of the season the second best team in the league. The run that they went on, the players that they eventually brought in, they are a very, very good outfit. They've got a good attacking lineup, and it's just a typical Paul Marshall kind of team, where they start off slow at the start of the season, then they finish off really strong. So we expect nothing but a tough game. But listen, like I said last week, and I'm not just sugarcoating it or anything, we're punching way above our weight. Don't get me wrong, we'd love to get promoted. I think it'd be an unbelievable story in terms of where we started since when I took over fighting relegation. I looked at it the other day. It's not like we've done a massive overhaul. There was 7 or 8 players in the squad on Saturday that were involved in the relegation battle. So credit to them in terms of the progression they've had in over that time. They've turned it around. We've not been able to just miraculously pull out a bag of money and just start bringing in a load of players and just change it. What I've tried to do is implement a bit of a culture around the place and change their mindset and just implement a bit of a strategy, and it's worked really well for us. So obviously it's a 50-50 chance. It's just a lottery ticket in it, and if it happens, absolutely fantastic. But if it doesn't, we'll be able to bounce back. But don't get me wrong, we are going to win, and we are going to try our best. And that's all I've ever asked of the lads, to be honest with you. And believe it or not, throughout the whole season, not once have I actually mentioned the word promotion to them. I've never told them that we're pushing for promotion. or anything like that. I've allowed them to set their own goals. So obviously that's just an outcome of just getting a result. But to us, it's just another 90-minute game, isn't it, really?
Good man. Finally, then, you had everything set up last week where you trained at Calverley, and you set yourself up. Is it exactly the same? Is it eat, sleep, repeat, the same strategy that you used last week? Wear the same clothes, all the superstitions.
I don't know about training at Calverley because my goalkeeper got injured, and that was just like I said, the Thursday night, him going down, getting injured, and then he limped off training, and then we had to do a little bit of research. Obviously, we don't have another at the time, and I'll just share it now because it is a bit of a funny story. But at the time, the only other registered goalkeeper, so we had George McMahon playing for us, and he's been playing for an 18 months. Now, we were very, very, very lucky to have George, and he came to us at a time where probably football, he kind of wrote it off in his life, and he was at a stage where I think, obviously being an ex-professional goalkeeper at Burnley and training with the likes of Joe Hart and Nick Pope and Tom Eaton, and having, I think Lindegaard he mentioned as well, having that kind of group and caliber of goalkeepers to be working with at a young age, then to having nothing because of COVID, it was challenging for him. So eventually he kind of came in with us, and he absolutely loved it, managed to get his kind of love for the game back, and we lost him because he's actually a full-time goalkeeper coach at Wolverhampton Wanderers now, as Cat 1. So immediately put a voice note into him saying, listen, I might what and as soon as I looked at my phone, he's put a message in the group, I can't even be there to watch, I have to be in Liverpool. So he comes to games. So he was at a game at Liverpool, and then I thought, never mind, we'll get our goalkeeper coach in who's been with us for and again 18 months, and he used to be a goalkeeper. Not until Saturday morning at 10 o'clock we realised he didn't actually sign forms this year, so he wasn't even registered. So 10 o'clock in the morning I realised he's not even actually registered. He can't play, and then we've had to make a last-minute change and throw the striker in goal. So yeah, you can't make these stories up, to be fair. It's a nightmare.
You're going to be on the phone this week ahead of Saturday, then, but I won't spoil anything. Obviously, you don't want to give your tactics away and teams away. So, no, it's an amazing story. Like I say, I think a few of us are going to possibly try and get down on Saturday, but amazing story. Just keep up the good work, and we have to be balanced on this because we're West Yorkshire, so obviously we wish both teams all the best. But like I say, it's a really good story, and it's one that
and in all fairness, I've got huge amounts of respect for Gareth and Paul. We get along really well, and we've exchanged text messages and calls over the last couple of weeks, like wishing each other luck, etc. But I think it's a credit in terms of we spoke about it before, in terms of the club infrastructure and kind of where they're at and what he's done for them. That was a club that probably similar to, they just went from relegation to relegation, and since he's kind of come in and changed the kind of club culture, and you can see slowly the attendances have increased, and he's done really well there, to be fair. So I look forward to seeing him, and my good friend Jelly, who's one of the first team coaches there. But yeah, I'd love to get one over him on the day. But it's football. It's more of a friendly rivalry, I should say.
I'm going to say, don't be too nice, Reece. This is a battle. You've got to win it to get promoted, mate. You've got to leave all the niceties for 90 minutes, haven't you?
It's all part of the plan, though. It's all part of the plan.
Can I just ask about? Obviously, when you've said about the goalkeeper situation, I mean, on Saturday morning, you must have been head in your hands then, thinking, "Oh my God, what are we going to do?" I mean, did you have an inkling that your striker, it was decent in goal?
Well, to be fair, when he was younger, he's actually played in goal, and he plays in goal on a Sunday. I've got to give him a mention in terms of Ryan Conlon. He actually did really well, and I've spoken to one or two of the Campion lads. They actually said, "You know what? He's done you a favour. He's better than your other goalkeepers," in a bit of a bantery way. But he honestly, I rung him up. He was the first phone call I made on the morning. I said, "Look," obviously told him the sketch, and in all fairness to him, he wasn't fazed by it, and he said that's absolutely fine. Then I rung the chairman and told him, and we had a laugh and a giggle about it, and just said, "It is what it is. What can we do?" And then we had a team meeting in the morning and we discussed certain elements, and I think that's one of the first things I kind of wanted to just kind of clear the air. I don't want to use this as an excuse after the game. I don't want to look back and think, do you know what? Oh, we didn't have a goalkeeper. Let's just get it out there. Let's address it. This is how we're going to deal with the situation, and we move on by it. And like you're all fully aware of it. We don't want to feel sorry for ourselves. If you go into the game feeling sorry for yourselves, then you're going to get turned over. And you're going to embarrass yourselves. So just let's not use that. Let's not have that as an excuse by the end of the game.
And you know what? That's why I have ultimate respect for people like yourself who have no excuses. You have literally no goalkeepers, and at the top of the game, not that we're going to bring the discussion into it, but you have a certain manager that has 1,000 people in his academy that costs about 70 billion. And, you know, he's talking about games and players that can't play. So, to be honest, mate, absolutely well done. And like Lou says, we've got to be fair, but yeah, absolutely.
No, I think, do you know what? I think that's where sometimes common sense has to prevail, because we spoke to the league first and we mentioned it to them, like, we don't have a goalkeeper. And I had a look and done a bit of research, but
like, what did they say? What was their reaction?
Well, the FA, to be honest with you, they didn't know at first. They actually said we need to check with the ruling. I
can kind of understand that, because let's be honest, to go into a playoff semi-final and then be asked, by the way, we don't have a goalkeeper, what can we do? I can't imagine that happens often, even for the FA to have to go and say, no, we have to check the rule book first.
Well, it's the position that has special dispensation. If there's any specific injuries, or you can sign a goalkeeper at the outside of a transfer window, it's normally it comes under the emergency loan bracket. But honestly, I did my research. I was up quite late on Thursday and I was just checking through it all, and eventually they came back to us and said you could actually get an emergency loan. However, when it involves a playoff relegation or a cup when it's a cup final or something along those lines, you're not actually able to use it. And I thought it's a bit of a strange rule, to be fair. You either should be able to use it or you shouldn't. What difference does it make if it's a cup final or if it isn't? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it was a bit of a funny one, to be fair. But I think you're spot on in terms of how probably non-league clubs get what our expectations are in terms of how we're treated in terms of some of the clubs that have got an academies and if it was a professional club or any other club, they'd just be able to pluck someone out from their academy or wherever. So we obviously don't have that luxury, unfortunately.
And I love that you've outed your best mate's nickname as Jelly on the podcast. That's just fantastic.
Cheers for joining us as always, and look, all the best, as we said, to both sides, but obviously to yourselves, and thanks for being on the podcast, mate.
Cheers, thank you very much. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Cheers, thanks, mate.
That's Riz Mohammed there, the manager of Albion Sports, after winning the Battle of Bradford, as we say, Lou. They got to go to Garforth on Saturday, which is going to be no easy task by any stretch of the imagination.
No, it's really not. And let's be absolutely frank, what a story it is for Albion to be where they are. It's unbelievable. And again, Riz knows what he's talking about. It's that culture, that mindset. I think that's a big factor in football, and it seems that he's got everybody on the same side, pulling in the same direction to be successful. And that success at the moment is probably where they are. But imagine them playing, some of the local teams like of Avenue, Ossett, Liversidge, Brighouse, potentially Pontycollars, depending on the playoff situation. I mean, that is, like I say, it's in a different stratosphere from where they have been. So, like I say, we wish both teams all the best. I know that some of us are going to go down and watch it ourselves. There were nearly 1,000 there for Garth's semi-final. I expect it to be possibly even more. I think we're going to be over 1,000 for Saturday, which is amazing for that level of football. And it shows the appetite's there. So, I think it's going to be a really close game, really tight game. It'd be interesting to see how Albion having goal, whether it is McMahon, Trenery, or Conlon, or whoever he's got, in his contacts list. but yeah, looking forward to it. And like I say, commiserations to Campion. It's got to be said, we know how much of a great club Campion are. They've battled so hard through this season, and we're very close to potentially winning a title. And unfortunately, a red card from the goalkeeper, just before half time has a massive effect on the game. And from that perspective, you're down to 10 men. You've got a player like Albion going in goal, but when you're down to 10 men and it happens through the game like that, it just changes everything. And Albion just blasted them in 2-3 minutes with 2 quick goals. And once that was the case, being honest, it was quite comfortable for Albion to see the game out. But yeah, I'd just like to give a shout out for some real good characters at Campion, like Shep, Bob, James and Ash, who've worked ever so hard. And sometimes as really tough and as it is raw to suffer a defeat against your rivals as well for a promotion play. I'm sure that they'll be looking at that squad next season and wanting to build again, because they have a real opportunity to potentially go up automatically. And I think that will be the aim for Campion, and more than capable to do it. And again, it'll be a really interesting one. And if they do happen to go up, is that East Division, gets fuller and fuller of Yorkshire teams, which would be great.
I mean, obviously, I know that division quite well, Luke, because my connections with Emily, and obviously they ran them. They ran them as close as probably what they could have done this season. I mean, Emily would have cut above, as we know, everybody sort of else in the division. But if Emily hadn't been in that league, they probably would have gone up as champions, because some of the football they played throughout the season was unreal, really. I mean, every time Emily came up with a result, Campion just were coming up with just as good a result, really, in terms of the goals and the football they played. So maybe it's just they've gone into a playoffs, and we see further up the division where the team that's gone closest for the automatics and the title, that that disappointment of maybe getting into the playoffs maybe just played a little bit of a part as well. Maybe, I don't know.
Possibly. I mean, it was a really tense first half, and being honest, I can see what Riz is trying to say. I thought it was equal. I don't think there were much in between both teams, and I got asked a question tonight, actually, just before I jumped on the pod, about what do you think the result would have been if Campion had stayed to 11 men. Hypotheticals, ifs and buts, but it wouldn't surprise me if it had gone to penalties. It were that close. And the way that Campion play, like Riz said right at the beginning, is that the score absolutely bucket loads of goals, but they do concede. And I said this last week and over recent months, that Campion play like the old Newcastle United in the 90s, the entertainers, where we'll score 7 but we might concede 6, and it's entertaining. And like I say, probably Emily have been a lot more stubborn and probably more structured in terms of that, but Campion are one of the most entertaining teams to watch. You're guaranteed to see goals there. And I don't think it was, I think apart from that red card, like I say, it was anybody's game. And luckily for Albion's perspective, it was just their day. And for Campion, it's as tough as it is. It wouldn't surprise me if they came back stronger. There might be a few changes, but I know, knowing the guys there, they won't accept that, and they'll want to go one better.
Talking then, ahead of that game, as we say, it's going to be a close one. We think at Garforth. We're hoping for a good crowd. I can't think of any other remotely important games in the Garforth vicinity on Saturday afternoon. So Leeds fans could get themselves down there because there's nothing else going on. And to be fair, it's a 12:30 kickoff for them, isn't it? So by the time that's done, they can still get to Garforth and take a nice playoff final. Might not be the last one they'll see this season.
Probably what's better football at Garforth as well.
Let's all say this whilst Jay's not here. He is going to join us a little bit later on. Sticking with non-league then and looking around the region, Lou, into the NPL East is where Albion Sports are hoping to go. Pontefract Collieries, they're looking to get out of it via the promotion playoffs themselves, and a tricky-looking game for them on Tuesday night against Dunstan.
Yeah, tricky one. And obviously, if results had gone Ponty's way, that Ponty could have hosted Dunstan, but obviously that didn't materialise. And you're talking about what, a 2.5 hour trip up there tomorrow night. It's going to be a real tough ask of Ponty, but listen, I've watched them a lot over this season, been really impressed. Dunstan are not going to be an easy opposition, but at the same time, they're not going to be rolling over the Ponty, and I think they'll be looking at Ponty actually probably a little bit worried that they may be playing someone like Ponty, because they will keep it. Again, we talk about Emily have been a really tight, really organised, really structured team who give very little away. and it's going to be tense like any playoff is. Sometimes you don't always get the best games, do you? But it's those big moments like we saw on Saturday that can affect games. And Ponty have got strength in depth. They've got height as well, which is crucial from set pieces. And it wouldn't surprise me if it came down to one of those situations. But Ponty are, I said this a while ago, they're in with a shout. Stockton are going to be disappointed they've not won the league because they're in a prime position. I wouldn't say they've thrown it away, but they've blown a chance of winning it, and Hebben have won that. So Stockton are going to be disappointed that they're in the playoffs. Dunstan are probably okay because they're expected to get there. Ponty have probably just achieved exactly the max of what they wanted to do. And then you've got Carlton who, suffered a disappointing defeat at Brighouse. They're not gone into it with good form. So it's going to be wide open. I'm saying this and I'll probably be massively wrong. I think it's going to be really tight, and it wouldn't surprise me if it went to penalties.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few tight games, obviously, starting the NCL, and for Ponty, it'd be a hell of an achievement from where they've come actually over the last few years as well, if they were to make it through those playoffs and into the Northern Prem.
Yeah, and I think, again, this is what we talk about non-league teams, and it goes back to that debate that we had last week about FA Cup replays and this, that, and the other. And listen, Ponty have really built on the success they've had in recent years when they've gone far in cup competitions, especially against the likes of Halifax. They've helped build some of the infrastructure around the ground and probably off the field as well. And what they've got is just a real steeliness about them, which I really like. They're not the most pleasing on the eye, but what they do is really effective. The two centre-backs, like to steer and Danny Burns, are seasoned professionals in that league. They've got all the experience in the world. And then you've got some of the youth like Adam Hoare, who's been at Guiseley, scored 20 odd goals this season. Billy Thompson, who's been at Taddy and Guiseley, is kind of contributed as well. Frankie Sinfield, who's been at Halifax, has been exceptional for me in the past 5-6 games as well. Jack Van in the midfield just knits everything together. Craig Rousseau has just got a really good tight knit squad. But yeah, I mean, if Ponty go up, that is an unbelievable achievement, and they're more than capable of doing it. It's actually what's the next step for Ponty. Are they ready to go up? I think they probably are. But it's almost have got to survive with some big boys in that league. And it's going to be a big jump. But what they've got in the bag is that they've got a bit of experience in big moment games that I've seen them through in recent years. And there's no reason why Ponty can't surprise a few people, because I don't think Ponty are going to be the favourites. I think Stockton are going to be the favourites.
Yeah.
But then again, there's going to be players who are playing for contracts, potentially playing at other clubs next season. There's some big North East teams, like Blythe, are going to come down. So, some of those players, if they don't go up, might be playing for a contract elsewhere in the Northern Prem anyway. So there's so many different scenarios and different narratives are going to play out in that. But yeah, it's going to be, if Ponty go through tomorrow, that's a big achievement. And then, like we always say, and we said it there, playoff final is just, it's 50-50. It's how you play on the day and how you turn up and how you prepare for it. And sometimes it goes your way and sometimes it don't, but you'd rather be there than not.
Sticking with the NPL East, Brighouse Town, it's been, on the face of it, although I think we get to see the official confirmation, talk of a reprieve for them, in which case it would be quite the mixture of emotions over the course of the weekend. Of course, relegated comes Saturday.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to be on points per game on the reprieval system that goes on at that level. So, because obviously the win, the second in that PPG table, so to speak, which is hard because it's one that you don't really want to celebrate, but it's better than going down to the North East counties, which we all know notoriously from what we focused on is a real tough division. From Ponty perspective, it's going to be I think another transitional pre-season for him because they won't want to be anywhere near that bottom of the league next season. They haven't really been down there for quite a few years now. But Paul Quinn's come in there. I saw an interview actually earlier today that he felt it was like the longest 3-4 weeks he's ever had in football, and he's quite experienced. So it will be interesting to see if Paul does stick around there next season or whether they go for somebody else. And obviously the talks are going to happen now because the season's finished. But it's a massive win against Carlton. And ultimately, they had to win that to stand probably a chance of survival, which is looking likely that they've done. So yeah, in some respects, fair play. But next season, they absolutely won't want to be looking over their shoulders like that.
No, absolutely not. And as for Liversidge and for Offsets, in the end, kind of just mid-table finishes for the pair of them, seeing the season out. And again, they'll both, I guess, be looking to build on what they've done this season next year.
Yeah, and I think from Livisage's point of view, they've obviously lost a few games with the pitch situation being waterlogged. They've had to play a few games away from home. They've had to catch up. Obviously, with the season coming to an end, because
they were raising money, weren't they, recently for kind of trying to get work done on the pitch, I believe.
Yeah. So it's going to be. Yeah, obviously they've done that to try and help the pitch situation, which for next season is going to be critical because again, same amount of games. Depending on the weather situation, it could happen again. And for any club in that situation, which is what we've said before, that really does affect non-league clubs just in terms of income, never mind just the games. These non-league clubs rely on home games on a Saturday instead of a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night. And especially when you've got to play it away from home, that has a real domino effect on the finances. So, Ossett have done well to get out of that situation because when I saw them, being honest, they looked more, but the likes of
we saw them, didn't we, back in probably around December time, maybe
Ponte.
And I think it was a 4-0 win, I think, for Ponte on the day for Pontefract at Ossett, and kind of looked at that Ossett side and thought, crikey, where are they going to go from here? But they have done enough at least to keep their heads above water.
Yeah, a bit of experience. David Brown and Paddy Miller there who have been there in non-league. Harry Coates has been there as well, and it makes it even better because they had Keelan Swales as well up front, who was arguably one of the better players, and he went to FC United midway through the season. So they've done well to get out of that situation, picking up massive results. Going to Stockton, winning 1-0, and I think Hebden, it was massive, huge result. And like I say, they'll want to build on that, and they get good crowds, good fan base, and have decent foundation. So they want to build on, and every club's going to do the same. Said you've got again the likes of Remington and DC and Tully there. They'll be looking to keep the core of the team and build around it. But there's going to be so many teams in that local area. We talked about the NCL this season being a league to watch, which I know I called out right at the beginning of this season. And I think the East is going to be the same with so many local teams. Like I say, you've got Avenue, Emley, Ossett, Brighouse, Liversidge, potentially Ponte. That's 6, maybe, possibly 7. So, listen, it's going to be a real battle in that league next season, and there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be hoping to go up. I mean, you only have to look likes of teams coming up as well, the likes of Bishop Auckland in the Northern League playoff situation. So it's going to be really tight. Nobody's going to run away with it, but you've got to be prepared because you're in for a real battle next season.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk. Let's work our way up the side going down, as you mentioned, in Avenue in the East next season. But they finished the season at the weekend with, sorry, Lewis, another defeat, but a goal-filled game, if nothing else, in the situation where they're already relegated going into it.
Yeah, I've said this week. Games like that determine really and sum up the season, don't they? And also that also really indicates of the kind of players you want in your team next season. Matlock have struggled a lot this season. I know they've got Mark Atkins as like caretaker manager, while Crothers went to Baseford, but to go there and lose 5-2, and it's just, we said it last week, completely unacceptable. And what you need players to stand up and really be wanted. And some of those players are either playing for contracts at Avenue next season, or there's going to be other clubs watching and actually thinking, well, you could do a job for us next season. But to go there and lose in the manner that we did, 4-0 down, and got it back to 4-2, but to still lose 5-2, and I wasn't there because obviously I was at the playoff, but by all accounts it was just really disappointing. And again, reiterates the point that squad has not been good enough all season, and there's going to be a lot of players that are going to be leaving, and it needs to happen because, like I said earlier, they're a really good indicator when you've got nothing to play for. There's no pressure. I'm pretty sure the likes of the coaching staff have gone saying, there's no pressure on it. Just go and enjoy your football, see what you're capable of doing, and play yourself into either our books or somebody else's books next season. But it's unacceptable, and the chairman's obviously come out with a statement this evening as well from Avenue's perspective.
Although whilst we do, I'm going to bring, because he's joining us now, he's home at last. He's Jason Booker. Evening, mate. You all right?
Yeah, mate. Some run around. I only saw Lou about an hour ago.
Kicking the football around, weren't we, showing him how to do it?
Yeah, kicking the ball around. Then we had a bit of a meeting, and then I had to dash off 15 minutes in the wrong direction, have a meeting, and spin back around and come back to you lovely folks. So it's been a crazy couple of hours, mate. Yeah.
That is the main thing. Lewis, you were saying though about this chairman's statement.
Yeah, so obviously I know Ian commented. What do I think of it? it needs to be put into action.
What's it contain? I've not seen it myself. I've not had a chance before we came on air.
To summarise, really, the first paragraph, acknowledging it's a very disappointing season, relegation's hurting, especially for the fans. Recognising that first team success is critical, as well as kind of maintaining the books and making sure that's all well and good. But for me, the striking thing now about this is actually what they're saying in the statement in the last paragraph, and it reads, "Our primary aim is a promotion year and a season where our supporters get to see success from the first team." So that's the end paragraph to the statement, and that is something that, if I'm being honest, I haven't read in a long time. And like I say, actions do speak louder than words, and now that has got to happen because you've committed it to that in writing. Let's see what happens. Like I say, I fully expect probably at least half the team to leave, with other players potentially coming in, and from what fits Danny's and Tom's kind of criteria of what they want. But in the end, what Avenue need is what is being said over countless podcasts and countless months, and even, to be fair, years, is where we need older heads, experienced leaders to get them through, because don't get me wrong, there are going to be a few players in there who are on the younger side who may not have the experience, but you need them players alongside you to carry you through, drag you through them going on a boggy Tuesday night at Liversidge where it's not going to be easy to play football, on a long trip on a Tuesday night to Bishop Auckland when potentially they're going to be up there battling for promotion as well. Big moments, set pieces are going to come to it into effect, and Avenue have failed on that for quite a few years now. So Danny and the guys have got a lot of work to go through. We'll be looking at that routinely, speaking to players both now and probably before as well, seeing actually who do they think are capable of stepping up. And, we would have discussion, me and Jason, that shirt actually next season probably carries a lot more weight than it has done in recent years, because people are expecting Avenue to be at the top end of the table. Ironically, probably not Avenue fans, but people outside looking in will expect Avenue to be challenging at right end of the table. So, listen, that statement, it's been wanted by a few fans now. It has come out obviously tonight as we're speaking, but yeah, that interesting one is our primary aim's promotion, where supporters get to see success, and that success is challenging promotion / getting promoted. Other than that, that's a failure.
Yeah, big.
Yeah. But all I'd say, Lou, is even if you don't get promoted, you just want, first of all, to see a team that's not, that actually gives a crap about the club and tries its best and puts effort into the shirt and the badge. And for you, supporters, like, you haven't had that for a number of years now, have you? So that's the first protocol, and then the rest of it, you can worry about that afterwards, can't you?
I think it's really fair, Steve. I think Avenue fans' expectations, if I'm being honest, are really low. If low at all, just being non-existent because of what's happened over recent years.
This is the thing. It's not surprising given what they've seen over the last 2 years with the first team squad and the slide that there's been on the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're both right. In terms of that success, it has to be challenging at the right end of the table, because let's be honest, I think with the current team that we've had, we would struggle in this league. We said it last week, just because of lack of experience. Watching Campion and Albion Sports, technically we're the better team, physically, leadership-wise, all that throws into the pot. They'd probably still they'd bully us, if I'm being honest. But yeah, fans just need to enjoy coming back. You need to convince those that are not going at the moment, but it's the right place to go back on a Saturday afternoon to watch football. But I've said this, we've said this before, you need to change your DNA, the culture within the club. Everybody needs to pull together somehow, and that needs a real thought out, well-executed plan by those in kind of an operationals role, and from a strategic role is to kind of get people together on board, because that is ultimately going to be a real powerful thing where everybody's pulling in the same direction. You've seen it, Steve, firsthand with Emily, where everybody's pulling in the same way to get success. We've heard there from Riz, Campion have done the same, and I know it's at a level below, but at the same point, when everybody's on board and engaged with it and recognises what the club are wanting to do on the pitch and off the pitch, it becomes a real tool and a resource. But that's been lacked over the past few years, and now it's a time where everybody just needs to somehow get together, kind of air out the dirty laundry with each other, and yeah, it's not going to be nice. Got to be a lot of honest, transparent conversations people aren't going to like, and then you've just got to leave it at the door and start afresh, and that's easier said than done, but the club somehow need to get that done. And I do see the odd sign here and there. And I know there's still a lot of negativity, which is understandable. But, ultimately, the likes of Danny are going to be judged on the first 2-3 months of the start of the season. If you potentially don't get a win in them 3-4 games, questions are going to be asked even more so. But I will, personally speaking, and people might disagree, I'll judge him when he's got his team together, after the first 5-6 games and see where we are, because results in that division, as we've seen likes of Ossett going to Hebburn and Stockton and beating them, results can change quite a lot. You only have to have a consistent run of potentially 4 or 5 games and you're right up there. It's that cliche where anybody can beat anybody, but that's the level that you're at now. And listen, they've now committed to it, to back the first team, do what needs to be done. Let's see what happens in pre-season.
But the truth, sorry, Chris, just one final point from me. The truth is, Lou, is, and I know we'll come on to talk about Town, but it's a similar thing in terms of when you've got a losing culture and a losing process, and when you lose matches constantly, yes, it hurts, but it doesn't hurt the right people. So the difference is at Emily, when they lose a game, it hurts everybody at the same time, and all the same people, like everybody hurts, because they've got a winning culture. But the other thing is, it's not just like words, they put it into action. So when they've lost a game, next week Richard Tracy's gone, right, well, that's not good enough. This week we're gonna be on 100% on everything, and we're gonna go out and win and make sure we put smiles back on people's faces. And it's because of the drive of people behind the scenes. That's why it works. And at Town and at Bradford Park Avenue, they've got a losing culture, and they've got some people within the clubs that are really not that bothered. And if the clubs lose, it's like, so what? It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, Steve, nail on head completely. Can't disagree with any of that. And I think this is where the club do need to change it. Said it before, and in some respects, money helps. Money helps get better players. Money helps get better resources and everything that comes with it. But actually, the culture doesn't need investment in terms of financial. That's a mindset thing, and that's people coming together and doing the right thing by each other.
Money doesn't buy heart and passion and desire and want to win.
You're not wrong, mate. I can't disagree with any of that. So let's listen. I think there's people working hard. I know I've seen it firsthand. There's a lot of people working, like I said, all the hours. Probably more than what we should be doing to make something change and try and change the fortunes. And the proof will be beginning of next season how ready of a club to hit that East Division, because there's a lot of competition in there locally. Can they convince a place to come back they want to come? In terms of just, again, that perspective, Steve, Avenue now need to be going to play saying, if you want to win something, come and be with us, because we're going to be that team that wins it. Going and saying, we could get in the playoffs if you come, that's not good enough. Yeah. If I'm a player wanting to go to a club in a competition around, I want to hear that I'm going to be first choice and I can win silverware, which is a big change for the club, and it needs to happen. And like I say, people may disagree, but I'm seeing positive signs there, and it will come. We all know football's a very funny old business, and sometimes the good times do come around a little bit later than you want, but that will happen at some point. It's a matter of when, and Avenue need to do it within the next season or two.
I mean, one of the steps as well is getting the fans back in, as we were saying, and on Sundays, one of the initiatives to kind of the first steps where he's put in place for that Abbey Fest up at the Horsefall on Sunday afternoon. Tell us a little bit about that, a little bit about what's going on, and a little bit about the surprise for Stephen Downs that might even Gareth Walker come to the Horsefall and watch the game on Sunday.
What's this? What's happening now?
Well, let's just set this up perfectly, because this needs to be clipped. So, Avenue Fest, the Avenue Fest at Avenue is it's a bit of an open day, a bit of a community day to entice people to enjoy it, get to know a little bit more about the club. So right earlier on, there's going to be kind of children's competition, games on the pitch. That brings everybody together for all the work that they are doing really well in the community. And as well as that, it's going to be like the odd, inflatables, all that kind of goes with, the traditional open day. And then what we're going to do.
That's fun day in my head.
Yeah, we'll move on. And then obviously later on is the opportunity where you might see some former Avenue players and staff play against each other. And then after that, towards the evening time, some of us, as we've mentioned before, are pulling on our boots. Obviously there's going to be myself, potentially Chris, Jason, and that's why me and Jason were just kicking a football about, and Steve Downs, and we're going to be playing an opposition who were Bradford Park Avenue reps, which may include the likes of Danny Whitaker and certain James Hansen for you, Steve Downs, to play against on Sunday.
Wonderful.
Man marking James Hansen, a blind man marking James Hansen.
A fully fit, still playing James Hansen, who just likes to pull onto the left back and just tower above.
Has James Hansen been directed to this blind left back? That
he scored at the weekend as well. So
he played against some defenses.
Can I just say, right? If we analyse the game afterwards. Yeah, because we're all going for a curry afterwards. If we analyse the game and James Hansen hasn't scored a goal from the left back position, you all have to buy me a pint.
Sign down. Well, unfortunately, we did make the mistake of having this conversation in front of Danny Whitaker, who will be.
Oh my God, you idiots!
Look, you idiots. Steve, listen to this. We didn't even preempt this, right? It actually just came out the mouths of those saying potentially James Hansen might be playing, and we went, this is absolute gold. This is absolute perfection. James Hansen might be facing Stephen Downs. So this is for everybody who's listening and watching. If you're spare on Sunday about 5 o'clock and you're in the Bradford area, just pop down to the Horsefall Stadium where you might see, James Hansen, League Cup final player, finalist against Swansea. He's scored the biggest goals against Aston Villa, up against our very own Stephen Downs.
Getting by Downs.
A blind man from
a man that is technically registered blind.
That's 5'9" and can't head a ball. Brilliant.
There we go, guys. How's that for an incentive to get over to the horse?
Come on, guys, you got to see it.
I'm coming for the curry. I don't know about that. It might tempt me to come for that as well.
Well, you may as well come for the murder as well as the curry.
You got to get there for 5 now, guys. You got to get there for 5.
Can I just ask?
Didn't he? So
what did you
scoring? Then you're better than.
I'm putting this in for me, and there we go.
The game's just sent it off.
The veterans at the weekend.
What did you say to Danny Whitaker when this conversation? I'd like to hear what Danny Whitaker said. To be honest,
I imagine Jay just burst out laughing before.
That's exactly what happened.
You know what, Steve? There were absolutely 0 words, but plenty of laughter. Plenty of it in the room.
Oh my God!
When I spoke to Lou before, I mentioned that Hansen having played on the Saturday, but as Ian's just pointed out, Hansen played on the Sunday as well for Bradford City Vets and scored 4. So he's played 2 games this weekend. You should be able to pocket him next weekend, Steve.
Oh yeah.
When Danny said that James was probably playing, I think I just did burst into laughter and just went, "Oh my God, he's going to be peeling on the Downsy."
Did you explain who I was, by the way?
Yeah,
I am blind.
And then explained it. Yeah.
What did Danny Whitaker say? Like, did he say, "Oh, James has got no chance"?
He said he's a brilliant left back who nearly made it as a pro and absolutely hates James Hansen.
No, I do not hate James Hansen. I've never met the bloke.
Well, you will. You will.
So you might be seeing him on Sunday, Steve, in your nightmares. Yeah.
Do you know what though, lads? It's going to be a great day, innit? I'm not. I'll raise a glass to James Hansen if he scores 15 goals past me, which I expect him to be.
I mean, joking aside, like we are probably going to get absolutely humped.
Well, if you do your job at centre defensive midfield, then we might not. But
I'll do my best, mate. I'll do my best. I'm playing for a contract. I said to Danny, I says, "Look, this is my trial game.
Can I play for a contract?"
Can we get James first?
Can we get me in?
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. Everyone. That is the breaking news on tonight's show. That's your first reaction there, Steve. That is going to be the case. Where Hansen is up against Downs.
Well, I know who's winning, and it's definitely the blind man. It's going to be great.
It is certainly going to be an entertaining period.
I don't know where we said we were all going to play. Chris, are you at centre back with me? I might just push James onto you, to be honest.
To be fair, I mean, I'm certainly starting on the bench because I haven't kicked a football for years, and I'm absolutely no way, shape, or form have I got the physique to be kicking a football nowadays. So
I can't wait for Jay to see me run down the wing and go, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm playing with This absolute wonder kid.
I mean, it's great until James Hansen tracks back and pinches the ball away, and
James won't be tracking back. He didn't track back in his career, so.
Fighting talk already. Show him this before game starts.
Hey, like if James wants to bring out his Ballon d'Or, then do you know what I mean? We'll see who's the best.
Who's the terrier now, Steve? Who's the terrier here?
There we go, Six fans. Get yourselves down to the hospital. Support Abbey Fest on Sunday and see James Hansen banging a load of goals past us. Like basically, is the closing message on that one. What time's it starting then up at Abbey Fest on Sunday, Lou?
All the details are on the socials on the website, but it should hopefully be kicking off kind of early this morning. So, like I say, everything kind of probably some
live music and that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, there's loads of stuff for people to get involved in. So, yeah, it's one of those again where clubs really do rely on these kind of events, and I think it's the first time we've really done something like this as an open day as a club. So yeah, it'd be good to see people down there, and like I say, you can pick and choose what time you come down, but yeah, there you go. 5 o'clock is probably one way.
The main event starts at 5, doesn't it, Lou?
Yeah, massively.
This is not the surprise I was expecting, by the way. I was expecting Jay to force me to wear a Leeds shirt or something daft like that, to be honest. It's actually a nice surprise. I
don't think you'll be saying that come 5 o'clock on Sunday,
I
mate.
don't think you'll be saying that either.
Well, I won't see any of his goals anyway, so it's fine.
You said that, not us. Moving on then, sticking in non-league, Lou. A former Avenue man is back in management. Mark Bower and Danny Boshell have taken the reins. We kind of speculated a little bit over the last few weeks. We certainly speculated at the time around Craig Elliott because that seemed a logical move. And then, of course, how did I not really put it back together that Bowser's out of work? He's bloody loved at Nethermore. It makes perfect sense in that respect. And it was announced, I think, on Thursday or Friday it was. Yeah,
kind of a return of the two Guiseley sons, aren't they, where everybody, loves him for what he's done at Guiseley. Probably not a surprise from those of us in, kind of a local area. I thought it would possibly be one of him or like Sir Craig Elliott, like we discussed. And obviously the Guiseley board have gone down the route of, tried and trusted. We know what Mark and Danny can do. Like I said, I still stand by. I think what they did at Avenue was unbelievable in the circumstances. They gave a lot of people a lot of memories after what was a really successful period at Guiseley. Obviously, it kind of towards the end, it was so difficult for them to probably work with what they got in the league that they were in. But listen, what they've done is and what they're capable of doing is getting a team that is really hard to beat. You get a real unbelievable team spirit, which guarantees you probably 6 to 9 points across the season that you weren't expecting. And let's be honest, they've probably got a little bit of extra resources to work with at Guiseley. And that's probably really enticing for them. And I know that they were there for the first game at Workington, obviously suffered a last-minute defeat, which would have been disappointing. But it's probably, again, like I said earlier, with Avenue in a Matlock situation, it's probably a good game to watch where there's no pressure on at all. You get to see firsthand at some of the players and what they're capable of doing. I'm guessing that Mark and Danny have already identified targets wherever they were going to potentially be next season at some point of who they want to get in. And they deserve a real good shot at it. And I think what they'll do is what you'll get from Mark and Danny is absolutely 100% effort. I've said it before and I still stand by it. I think the time was right to leave Avenue. Probably even a little bit before, just for their own reputation and their own managerial career. I think it just comes to a natural end up there. And that doesn't kind of dilute anything that they did at all. Guiseley fans and what I've seen are ecstatic that Mark's come back. I've not seen one bad word about them both returning. And obviously they were there helping at the tribute match for Adam's dad as well, which gave a really good shout out last week. And the pictures and results from that were amazing. That happened on Saturday. And obviously they both contributed, both Mike, Danny and the rest of the gang there, to a really successful day. So again, it's going to be another interesting pre-season at Nethermore because they're going to be wanting to get players in straight away so they can build a squad as soon as they possibly can. There'll be some players that Andy Welsh has signed that will be possibly looking elsewhere or whether they want to impress Mark and Danny. But what you're going to get with Mark and Danny, like I say, is absolute determination to get Guiseley into that playoff situation again. It's going to be another tough league, like we mentioned last week. but guys are more than capable of getting in and around the playoffs. And listen, 2 men around the local area now to get success in the playoffs is Mark and Danny. So it's a really shrewd appointment. They've got to be, and I've said this about the Guiseley situation, have got to be given the time to do it, because you can't just let them have 4 or 5 months to do it, which unfortunately was the case for the likes of Andy. And so I think, yeah, good appointment. And what will be interesting to see the kind of calibre of players that we're able to sign with the budget that we've got. So I think for the first couple of signings, we'll see exactly the intentions of what the guys, the club need to do to go up, because if we're signing relatively big names and good quality players, that's a sign of intent.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to Mark's first interview since taking the reins back at Guys with Colin Robertson, who's what the commentator and the media man over at Nethermore, and he's touched on the fact that without necessarily saying, I think he said something along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing here, so don't quote me on it, but that he's basically suggested that the budgets that they're going to have there are going to be certainly bigger than he had during his time at Avenue.
Yeah, and I think that's probably to be expected, really. But again, it's how you use that budget and the contacts that they've got. Ross is obviously there; he's got contacts as well, so that's going to add a different complexion to it. And listen, we're all football people at the end of the day. Russ, Danny, Mark, we're all going to be in it together. But like I say, recruitment is going to be crucial for guys' success. They nearly did it this season, getting in the playoffs, but just faded. And let's be honest, the Guiseley fans are going to expect to get in the playoffs. They're not going to expect a mid-table season, especially, nostalgic-wise. Mark and Danny have got them in the playoffs and got them success and took them all the way to the National League. So even though it's a completely different league and different situation, environment, players that are along with it now, what you're going to see is the expectation levels are probably going to be a little bit higher. And like we said with Avenue, that kind of shirt might kind of a little bit heavy on Guiseley's shoulders, and I don't think that's going to faze Mark and Danny at all in the slightest. I think we'll actually thrive on that, because recent seasons have not had that pressure of being at the top end of the table. We've had to battle against relegation and inevitable relegation at some point, whereas Guiseley, that is not the case. The expectation at Guiseley is to get promoted.
Yeah, absolutely. And going forward for guys, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the squad in particular, because that's the squad currently that's sitting there that's made up of players from, well, all three of the previous regimes, actually, of Danny Ellis and Danny Forrest, then obviously Paul Phillips and Andy Welsh more recently as well. There's certainly going to be things to sort out there, but I guess that's where having Russ as that director of football that has certainly been there for, the last 2 management teams that have been in the hot seat will possibly come to fruition.
It's going to be an interesting dynamic. I'm guessing, obviously, Mark and Danny wouldn't have taken the job if they didn't feel they could all work together. But at the end of the day, it's a really good opportunity for them all. Yeah, it's a good opportunity for them to all work together, and they'd have bumped into each other. Russ being at Alfreton, that would being at Guiseley and Avenue before, so we're not going to be strangers to each other. And I'm pretty sure that we'll all have the strengths and areas where they feel that others might complement each other a bit more. But yeah, it's good. Listen, it's going to be one of those situations where guys will become beginning of the season and be up there in possibly the top 6 teams to get promoted. And that will be determined, like I said earlier, from that calibre and quality of signings that we're able to get through the door, because they tend to go down probably the more experienced route, being honest, in recent years, the Bower and Bosh. But what they've got at guys again is an unbelievable academy that's just a conveyor belt of talent. There's some players who've not even played for the academy who are going on to EFL teams, and is there a possibility that 1 or 2 gems could potentially play in a team next year? It's up to Mark and Danny to decide, but they'll obviously, with Russ, want full focus on the first team and manage that expectation. With that, I think we'll go well next season. I think it's a shrewd appointment.
And of course, the 24-25 season as well marks 10 years since that really famous promotion that Guiseley last had out of the National League North under Mark Bower into the National League with that playoff final at Chorley, where they were 2-0 down at half time and came out to win it 3-2 in 90 minutes.
We said earlier, didn't we? Football goes in cycles. You can never predict it, but what you can say is you got to go through good times, bad times. Guys have been at the very top of, the kind of a non-league scene. At some point, it will probably come again. And I'm sure Mark and Danny will be doing everything they can to replicate that. But listen, I think fans have got to be relatively patient. They're not going to get instant success with it. Do I see Guiseley going up to the National League at the moment with the teams that are in the National League North? I think it's a real stretch for him. But if there's a pair of people who are one of those that are going to upset others and come out of nowhere and surprise a few people, Mark and Danny have proven that both with Guiseley and Avenue before, so there's no reason why they can't do it again.
Absolutely. We're hoping to speak to Mark on the show, hopefully on next week's show, all being well. Let's go into that National League North, and I guess with Farsley at this stage, as we touched on them last week, having concluded the season and stayed up, no news is good news.
Yeah, exactly that. To be honest, they've done what they needed to do last week. I can imagine they've probably taken a week or so off with all the tension and everything that went around it. And listen, they've got a lot of work to do. Mentioned it last week. That division is going to be so tough. You know, Kidderminster coming down depends on the geographics with potentially Oxford. You know, you've got teams coming up out the Northern Premier League, Radcliffe, potentially Macclesfield or Marine. The list goes on. Blythe coming down into the Northern Premier League is another one less out that league who've been looking over the shoulders for a few seasons. So that Northern, the National League North is going to be, for me, it's almost like a bit of a National League light version with some of them clubs that are going to be in it. I could be wildly off the mark this. I think Farsley we need to recruit really well. They need to be really shrewd with who they sign, get the infrastructure set up, because they're going to be up against it next season. And I don't think that's going to be a surprise for anybody. But again, what Farsley have demonstrated in the past few years is that they're absolutely capable of doing the impossible for some people. And I think with the likes of Clayton, who's got his contacts, obviously the changing coaching situation, try to change the fortunes, but winning 2 in 13 is not what Farsley need to be doing to start that season. Because if they do, then they're going to be in a lot of trouble. But listen, no news is good news. I think, like you say, mate. And again, what they're going to have is realistically probably is a good selection, and the highest ranked team in our region in a non-league area, obviously apart from Halifax, who are probably in a different planet at the moment. You know, they're going to be competing against the likes of Guiseley and teams like that, and you know, they've got that tag to say that we're in National League North and play as high as you can. So that's a way to convince a good quality place to come and join them and see what they can do again.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's turn our attention then to Halifax. And look, we all know the lottery of playoffs and the despair and the heartbreak that it can bring, or the joy and happiness that they can bring. And sadly, it was the first of those two options for Halifax Town. They just didn't get themselves going, did they, in that playoff eliminator game away at Solihull, and found themselves 3-0 down. Did pull it back to 3-2 before conceding a fourth, and they just gave themselves in the end an absolute mountain of climb that was just too far to climb.
The ironic thing is that we talked about Halifax's stubbornness and the ability to just be really solid at the back and not concede many goals. And then, like I say, within the first 15, 20 minutes, you're 3-0 down and the game plan kind of goes out the window. I felt really sorry for them, because some of them were just flukes, especially the deflection off Tyler Golden as well. That just doesn't normally happen. That probably happens, twice, 3 times out of 10 that goes in the bottom corner. I felt so sorry for him, and I think they just looked shell-shocked. 3-0 down, they're probably just going out, how has this got to this situation? We've worked so hard to get in the playoffs, and we knew that on a day that Halifax could beat absolutely anybody in this league, and like you said, I think you're right, they just gave themselves a little bit too much to do. It's so tough because you've worked so hard across the season, you've travelled the length and breadth of the country, you've got to probably where you deserve at the end of the season, and Solihull are a solid team, and I mean, listen... And look, you have to see what Solihull did against Barnet. That's no fluke.
Yeah.
To go to Barnet, who are arguably probably the best team behind Chesterfield, and go and win away 4-0 shows the quality of what they're all about. And for Halifax to become within a whisker of just even getting a draw, you know, to peg it back to 3-2, the goal from Hottie was outstanding. And you just felt, again, the pendulum swing in Halifax's favour. But I can't blame the fourth goal. Well, I could do because I thought the defending were pretty horrific. But when you kind of, throwing people forward to get that equaliser, it's just one of those situations where the playoffs are just a completely different environment, different game to a normal league situation. It's just not, you can't replicate that situation. And Halifax are going to be really downbeaten by that. And yeah, I mean, obviously, Dave said it there, a game too far for Alexander. It comes down to the situation of having so many games in so few days. And I could see an element of that you could do. But I think there's also, when you're 3-0 down, that mental fatigue comes in just as much as physical as well, where you're just looking around each other going, how has this got to this point? 1-0, even 2-0, you stand a bit of a chance. But 3-0 is a whole different complexion on things. And I thought what Dave and the guys did from Halifax, and building up was a really interesting insight that, being honest, I've not really seen a lot of, and how they felt Halifax could potentially go, how the season's gone. It will be interesting to see who stays, who goes. I think Millington has, again, done a remarkable job there. I know some fans are kind of split on him, but outside looking in, he's done an unbelievable job with a limited budget compared to others in that league and the players that he's able to recruit. Millington, we know that that club is going to recruit players from probably a league or two below and make them international league players. And again, there's going to be no Chesterfield in that division next season. No Forest Green, something coming down. But I don't think you're going to get anybody who runs away with that league. So Halifax, again, have just got to use that as a bit of fuel. They've been in the playoffs over the past, 2 or 3 seasons or so. They've really given a good account of themselves. It just comes down to sometimes what happens on the day and that extra little bit of quality when it's really needed. And Solihull seem to have it at the right time. But in that final, there's 2 teams who have never been in the EFL before, with Bromley and Solihull. So that's going to be a really interesting one as well. And I don't think any team in that division is going to miss them because they're both really strong opponents.
You've taken the words right out of my mouth. I was about to go on to that fact that Solihull and Bromley meet in the final. I mean, you looked at, to be fair, the clubs that were in those playoff places, and it's just Barnet that have been in the EFL. And of course, Halifax haven't in the previous guys, but in the current guys they hadn't. And it's going to be a new name because Bromley got past Altrincham. I think Altrincham were a goal up at half time, and Bromley came and won 3-1. So it's a new name, as you say. It's going to go into the EFL, whether that's Solihull, Moors or Bromley. So there's something new there and a new team then to travel to Valley Parade next season. And it's Valley Parade we're going to turn to now. And Gaz, you're time to shine, mate.
Bloody hell, that was seamless, Chris, by the way. Well played.
I mean, it was seamless, and then you mentioned it, and now it doesn't feel as seamless. So, Gaz, look, I kind of want to use Bradford as a bright point. I know it was disappointment in the end of missing out on the playoffs, but the run that you've been into at the end of the season, that 4-1 win on the final day as well, there's certainly something to build on there. It wasn't to be with the playoffs, but we said last week, didn't we? It was asking a lot to make the playoffs on Saturday anyway, given the amount of results that need to go City's way.
Yeah, I said last week, I thought it was beyond us, to be honest. Been beyond us for a while. People were getting carried away, but it was always a long shot when you're relying on 2 other results to go your way on the last day, even though, like you say, we've been on a great run. I think we'd won 6 out. We ended up winning 6 out of the last 7 and drawing the other 1. Second in the form table, only Doncaster. And if it hadn't been for that run that Doncaster have been on, would have probably been in the playoffs. I know we finished a point outside in the end. Donny ended up, did they win 10 or 11 on the bounce and lost like 1 in 16, something like that. So other than that, we've been the form team, and we've just got to use that momentum and take it into next season, and hopefully we can push one further next season. I think there's a few reasons that we've been a bit positive. We've had some positive results towards the end of the season. I think a big part of it's been having a settled side. Been picking the same team week in, week out, and it's helped. We've sort of overcome a few injuries, and we're a lot better going forward than we were earlier in the season. We look a real threat in front of goal, which has been a problem for a year or two, where we've been over-reliant on Andy Cook. Now you've got Kavanagh, who's got 5 in 15. That's, you're talking 15 goals over a season if he plays at that for that next year. You've got Jake Young to throw into it next year as well. That could be another 15, 20 goals. The attacking midfielders can chip in with 10 apiece if they keep scoring as they are. So there's positives definitely looking into next season, and we've just got to carry on with the momentum if we can and see where it takes us.
Yeah, and goals are plenty at Valley Parade on Saturday for you. A good send off from Valley Parade for the season, and a good send off for that rather famous pitch this season.
Yeah, they started work on that today straight away. Obviously, it needed it. They do work on it every summer, I believe. It looks worse now than it has done for a few years. I believe that when Edding was at the club, one of the things he did do was spend a bit more on it that summer, and it has lasted a little bit longer than it has done in the past. But it's always going to be a problem. I believe the drainage is sort of Victorian underneath it. It's built on the side of a valley, as we know. It's always going to be a problem. They're going to have to spend money on it every summer, and yeah, they've started on it now straight away to give it as much time as possible before the start of next season. So yeah, fingers crossed it holds up a bit better. But as I said in the group chat earlier, it has been bad. But you look back on what the pitch was like when we beat Sunderland in the Cup in 2015, and it was a lot worse than it is now. So It's always been an issue. It's always going to be an issue, and we've just something we've got to live with, especially if obviously there's talk about what's going to happen with Valley Parade and things like that. We're probably going to have to spend more money on it at some point, and it's just when we do that.
Yeah. As for the game itself, then I'd say a 4-1 win.
Yeah, we played reasonably well. I thought that it was a bit disappointed in Newport, but the fact that they just came and sat back, they'd nothing to play for. I think they'd lost 6 on the bounce. It'd have been nice to see them come and sort of play a bit of football and have a bit of a go. I mean, what did they have to lose, really? At the start of the game, I thought that they were a little bit of a threat, but then they did just sit back and let us sort of go at them, if you will. And once we got the goal before, the 2 goals, I think you probably saw the times 44-45, right on half time, 2 headers. It was sort of one-way traffic after that, really. And they got one back at 3-1, but we were always the dominant side, always looked like we were going to win the game. And it's just a shame that it wasn't enough to get in the playoffs at the end of the day. Like I said, finished 1 point outside. I do believe if the season had gone on for another couple of weeks, we'd have probably got into that top 7. But whether that would have been a good thing, I don't know. I believe the form that Donny are in and the way that MK Dons have played since Mark Williamson took over, it's probably going to be one of those 2 that go up as the 4th team.
Yeah, it's MK Dons versus Crawley and Crewe versus Doncaster, isn't it? In the League 2 playoffs. I mean, I guess to kind of finish then with Bradford City, you've kind of overlying thoughts then for the summer to come. I mean, it seems early because we're not even in May yet to be talking about next season. But really, that's where you kind of look towards now, isn't it?
Yeah, start looking towards the summer. What players are going to leave? What players are going to come in? People talking about that.
When are you expecting the retained list?
Well, that's interesting, actually. They were asked. Graham Alexander was asked after the game when the conversation will be happening. I believe that by Wednesday, the players will have been told whether they're getting a new contract or whether they're surplus to requirements. So I would imagine it will be sometime back end of the week. Some clubs have done it already. I've seen that Shrewsbury have done theirs, Carlisle have done theirs. I believe there's 1 or 2 others that have already done theirs. So we're not the quickest off the mark, but I'm sure we won't be the slowest either. I always think at this time of year, there's a lot of talk about the players that are out of contracts and who you want to keep and who you want to let go. There's always an issue at Bradford. We seem to be in the situation every summer where we've 4 or 5 players that are under contract for next year that you can probably bet your bottom dollar that the manager doesn't want. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen with those. I believe that'll be a big job for David Sharp, whether he can sort of help to get those players moved on. Whether that'll be made public, who they are or not, I don't know. But I think most fans could name 4 or 5 that we probably don't want.
From time to time, don't you, where on the retained list at the end of the season, it says, I mean, I've seen it at clubs in previous years where it then says the following players have been made available for transfer. So it's not impossible that, they will just put those names out there and help to put them out there, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think that, not every club does it. I saw that Carlisle, they tweeted that, or their local reporter tweeted that there are players that they don't want, but they're not willing to name them, and that they've been told privately that they're free to find another club. Whether we'll do that, I don't know. We don't normally, but I would imagine that, like I said, most fans can probably name who those players are. Looking to next season, it'll be interesting to see how much of an upheaval there is, because there are quite a few out of contracts, and there's a lot of sort of split opinion about whether certain players should get a deal or not. Some think that Jamie Walker and Richie Smallwood should. Some think that they shouldn't. They've both sort of had varying form and injuries. Personally, I'm leaning towards keeping them both in this formation that we've got at the moment. I think it's excelling and we're scoring goals, and it's allowing the both of them to do what they're good at. Whether that'll actually happen or not, I don't know. The fact that they've both been in the team towards the end of the season probably indicates that they are in Graham Alexander's plans going forward. But we'll have to wait and see. What's also interesting, I'd just like to make a point. I mentioned it on the pod last week that the recent form or the recent upturn in form shouldn't reflect away from the bigger issues that there are at the club, and the fact that we need a plan and we need a structure and we need something to build on going forward, so that when results aren't great, fans have something to fall back on. It's been interesting that in that open letter that Stefan Rupp wrote, he mentioned that he would supplement, or he was hinting at supplementing the budget next season. Now, let's see if that happens. The season ticket sales have been announced today that we've sold 13,500 at the early bird price, which is 1,500 down on last year, but with the increase that in cost, because the prices have gone up, you would imagine that the budget will be at least as good as or better than it was last year, and that's before this year. And that's before Stefan puts any money in that he's speaking about being willing to do.
What
we have to do
is gone up by, guys?
Sorry, mate.
What sort of increase of the season tickets gone up by?
I was trying to remember what I paid last year. They've gone up to 249 this year. Now I think, don't count me on it, I think I paid 200 last year, so I think it's gone up by 50 quid. So you're talking, 25%? But there's obviously not been a 25% drop-off in season ticket sales. There's only been 1,500 that have dropped off.
Yeah.
And we've got 13,500. So you would imagine, but we've got there's a scepticism amongst City fans that those comments from Rupp might not be followed through, and it's not been helped by Jamie Rayner tweeted after the match that the interview that had been promised by Stefan Rupp has now been postponed.
Yeah.
Now, it's a bit worrying that the interview might not happen. If that doesn't happen, is the budget going to be supplemented like we sort of expect it to be, and like it's been promised? Let's see if this interview happens, because if it doesn't, we need to get back on the bandwagon and say these are hollow promises again, and we want some action. Let's see what happens. Like I say, we don't want that open letter and that interview that was promised to just have been a result of let's shut the protesters up that were protesting 2 or 3 weeks ago.
The supporters have done the job, though, haven't they, Gaz? I mean, you said it a couple of months ago, and you're absolutely spot on. The loyalty of some Bradford City fans can't be in question. I mean, to sell 13,000 season tickets in a season where it hasn't been ideal, even though you've been a point off the playoffs, shows the commitment that the supporters are willing to do. It works both ways now, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely does. I mean, like I say, like City supporters, I think they are more loyal than they're given credit for. You don't know how much this late running form has affected, decisions. Maybe the fact that we've had a good run has made people think, well, we'll give them another, I will have one for next season after all. I would like to think that most people would have probably been going to renew anyway. Like I said, 1,500's not that big a drop off, considering that what we were 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, we were 18th in the league, and people were getting, like you said, there were protests going on. People weren't happy. Those underlying issues, like I said, they still remain, and it'd be interesting to speak to Steve Hamilton and the guys at the Independent Supporters Group to find out what they're going to do if Rupp doesn't follow through with these promises that he's made, because the action still needs to be taken. But yeah, the fans have done their bit again. Let's hope that David Sharp and Ryan and Stephen Gent and Graham Alexander can build a team for us next year, or build on this team that we've got now and take us one step further. Fans always split at Bradford, like I say, and that causes a bit of unrest at times. But there's been a lot less talk recently about Graham Alexander's future. We've spoken on this pod time and time again about how fans were on his back after sort of 3 or 4 months. Thankfully, I was sorry that sort of died down a bit with this good run that we've had. I was always one that thought he should be given a bit more time, and I believe that next season he's got to be given probably most of next season until If it was to get to the end and we weren't near the playoffs, then that's something different. But if you're in and around the promotion picture next year, you've got to stick with him. There was a stat that someone tweeted at the weekend. I don't know if anybody saw it, but apparently on points per game in League Two, Graham Alexander, during his time at Bradford, is 5th on the points per game table compared to all the other managers in League Two. You've got Dave Challinor at the top. Then you've got Mike Williamson, MK Dons. You've got Phil Parkinson. You've got Nigel Clough. And then you've got Graham Alexander during his time at Bradford City. So I just like to think that it might just shut up this run, and that little stat there might just give him a bit more time in some supporters' eyes, and we can stick with him. We can build on what we've done towards the end of this season. We can take that momentum into next year.
I agree.
Helps if I unmute myself. That's with Bradford City. Jason, exactly the same thing.
I thought I'd gone deaf for a minute then, and then I realised that would be with. We're an absolute bloody scab.
I'll try it again, but this is the one thing into with Bradford City, because how many times do we see the club go through managers and it's almost like we're having to start all over again, when actually you kind of look at, even the worst of seasons. Look at Grant McCann at Doncaster. I saw a stat that I think after 29 games this season, Doncaster was second bottom of League Two. And, it goes to show that sometimes sticking with a manager, quite literally through all the bad results that they've had, 29 games in, and they've still been able to turn that corner. So it goes to show sticking with a manager, actually giving them the time and having faith in them from board level can pay off.
Just imagine where Town could have been if they'd stayed with Darren Moore.
The thing with Grant McCann is he's obviously got a lot of favour amongst Doncaster fans from what he's done there in the past. So probably not as many that would have been on his back as there might have been if he didn't have that history. But like you're saying, earlier in the season, you look at some of the results that they were getting. They were losing. I think they shipped 5 goals at home on more than one occasion. They were really, really struggling. And then, they've got a few players back from injury. They've hit a bit of form, and look where they finished 5th in the league. And like I said, from what I'm looking at in the playoffs now, I would imagine it would be them or MK Dons that'd have to be the favourites. So yeah, I'd like us to stick with Graham Alexander. I think, like I said, we've found a bit of form, particularly going forward. I was tweeting yesterday about what I do regarding players that are out of contracts and players that might still be under contracts. And someone came back to me, and like I said, I think I mentioned it earlier about saying we're over reliant on Andy Cook in front of goal. I think Graham Alexander's gone a long way to rectifying that in this last sort of few months since January. Like I said, with Kavanagh and Young, there's goals there. Get Alex Patterson fit, keep Jamie Walker fit. There's goals there from central midfield. Bobby Poynton's looking like a real player. I think he's got 4 goals this season. Do that over the season. He's another 10 goal a season attacking midfielder. There are goals in this team now where there doesn't appear to have been before. And if we can sort the defence out and keep solid at the back, then there's every reason that we can have a good year next year.
A word on Bobby Poynton before we wrap up Bradford. He's been, I think, was the young player of the season.
Yeah, he got young player of the year, and rightly so. He got goal of the season as well for his goal at home to Tranmere. I was thinking about it, as you do when you miss out on the playoffs by a point, and I was thinking about the possible reasons that we've missed out, and one of those, if you're gonna level anything at Graham Alexander, and it's something that I've talked about in the past when people were on his back for his team selections early in his tenure, in his first few months, he made some baffling team selections, and you look back now and you think maybe if Bobby Poynton had been in the side a bit earlier on, we might have got those couple of extra points that would have got us into the playoffs. So that's one thing you could lay at his door. The other thing is obviously the inconsistency, and I spoke about that last week. We've gone from losing run to winning run to losing run to winning run, and we've got to be a lot more consistent next year. But Bobby Poynton, fans love him. He's got something about him. He's got a little bit of star quality. Saw him make. I was at Walsall away last weekend. He made it. He turned 2 defenders inside out in front of the City fans. It was like, if any of you remember Gascoigne's turn against Holland in 1990, it was very much like that. He's definitely got something about him, and hopefully he's one that we can not just take the option on his contract, but give him a bit of a better contract and use him as a real asset going forward. Keep him as a real asset going forward, because, like I said, that boy's got potential. You can tell he's one of the best things to come out of our academy for a long time.
Yeah, that's a bright point to end on then for Bradford City, and a one for the future as well in Bobby Poynton. Let's then turn our attentions to League One. Sorry, the Championship. And
Can I just say though, before you
that
carry
was
on,
smooth. That was really smooth, that,
Oh, it
Chris.
was
That
really
was
smooth.
seamless.
can I just say, James Anderson won't be signing back for Bradford City next year when he can't score a goal past the blind man. But carry on. Keep going, Chris.
I mean, to be fair, out of Steve and Jay, I'm not quite sure which one of you two I was disappointed out of the weekend.
Steve.
So,
Yeah, I don't think it can be me somehow.
You've still got hope, haven't you, Jay?
Yeah,
Yeah,
saying it.
No, what do you mean, Gaz? Hang on. I've still got hope.
No,
There's
you
a
haven't.
17 goal swing, Gaz, that could happen.
I mean, Steve's been resigned to relegation for weeks. Jay's been very optimistic of automatic promotion, and now that looks he looks very shaky, let's be honest.
He's dead.
It's a big midweek
He's not dead. He's not
for
dead.
Leeds without the game, without even playing this midweek.
Yeah,
Let's start with Steve. Go on then. I mean, let's just start with how was your weekend? Because you were up in Scotland having a lovely time whiskey tasting rather than suffering at the John Smiths.
I think you
I'll
made
tell
the
you
right
what.
decision there, Steve.
Oh, you won't, Gaz. Honestly, we were supping on whiskey that was amazing. Weather was fantastic. Haggis was good. The only mistake that I made is the first day I went down for breakfast. I asked for a full English, and obviously we were in the middle of Scotland, so that didn't go down too well. But apart from that,
You sent a picture of that full Scottish, is what I'm going to call it, and it was absolutely fantastic. I can't.
My mate, when I said it to the waitress, my mate instantly said I am the least cultural man in Britain, which I think was a bit harsh. Yeah. But there we go.
Must have been watching the podcast, mate.
Well, true. I mean, Jay is uncultured. But yeah. So I watched the game on a very legal stream, and it was crap.
Right, because I know the first half was, but the second half seemed to be a much better Town performance, and well and truly were knocking on the door.
Okay, so first of all, this section is going to be run by Gaz. So, Gaz, what is your first question, Gaz?
Well, it was going to be how do you feel after the weekend? It was going to be how do you feel and where did it go wrong this season, Steve? Because
okay, so
I know you've been resigned to relegation for a while, and like you said, barring a massive goal swing, you've now had it confirmed. What were your overriding thoughts based on?
Sorry, Gaz, was one of those questions, where's it gone wrong this season? Some of us want to sleep tonight. We haven't got that long.
Shut up, Chris.
I've got plans for Christmas.
What are your overriding thoughts, Steve? Where did it go wrong?
My overriding thought, it went wrong everywhere, mate. Defence, midfield, attack. We can't score goals. We can't defend. I mean, the goal against us, it was just pathetic. I mean, you'll see better defending on Sunday at the Bradford Park Avenue Fest.
From yourself?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, mate. Yeah. I mean, we'll see anyway. Well, I won't, but most people will. But yeah, it just shocking, mate. Just Birmingham came up, had a plan. They just needed to win as well, really. So it was a bad point for them, to be honest. But it was just a crap game. I mean, everybody who was at the game that I've spoke to was just like, the atmosphere was all right. Town fans tried to get behind them. Obviously, we conceded the goal, which made it worse. Then scored the equaliser, which helped. But by the time the last 15 minutes came, Wednesday we're already 3-0 up against, I think, West Brom. So by that stage, everybody sort of knew anyway. I mean, everybody went into the game on Saturday, mate, knowing that we were down. To be honest, Saturday just confirmed it. I think after the game there was a bit of a walk around afterwards, but the attitude of some players just need to get out of our football club now, and I'll call them out. Sorba Thomas trailing 50 yards behind the players, not even acknowledging the hard-working fans that have gone to watch him. Not being able to cross a ball all season, not being able to take a corner all season. Just leave, mate. Go back to Wales. I don't care. But go wherever you want, but just don't turn up in my football club again. I can't be bothered with you. If you can't be bothered to turn up, then I can't be bothered to watch you.
Yeah. It's the minimal,
Bergzorg,
isn't it? It's the minimal any football fan wants. You want them to try, don't you? Try, they get a bit grace, but they're not going to try. I see totally where you're coming from.
not asking for much, guys. We're asking for a bit of heart and a bit of passion in probably the biggest game. Well, comparatively after Swansea, it wasn't that big of a game, but it could have been that, the relegation decider, really. And the fact that he couldn't get himself up for the match. Bergzorg, I mean, to be fair, Brian Rice in his press conference going into the game went for the players a little bit and said that there were some players that, didn't track back and haven't really put effort in and have left games early. And so looking at the bench, Bergzorg and Thomas were on the bench to start with. And to me, that just tells you everything.
I blame him for that, though.
What?
I read that. I listened to the his post-match comments about players. Sometimes they always leave early, and I'm guessing he was talking after the game when he was giving a briefing and whatnot. Now, I mean, for me, I've always kind of compared management day to day in businesses, in companies, very similar to the way that you manage footballers. It's a team, right? And the fact is that's him. Like, Andre, you're their manager. You are the manager of these people. If they are getting up and leaving, you need to do something about that. You need to command more respect. I'm not saying that they're not.
They're not bothered, Jay. They're not bothered. They don't respect him. He's come over from Germany with probably the best CV of any manager that Town's ever employed. And they just don't respect him. They have no interest in him. I've been told what they're like on the training pitch at times. And he said a comment, which I can't remember the exact wording, but it was basically, I've been a manager for 30 years and managed some big football clubs, by the way, and has never seen players toss it off in training or around the training ground, laughing and joking and, all that sort of thing. Like, in 30 years of being a football manager. And to me, you're in a relegation battle. You're at a club where good, hard-working people are working hard behind the scenes. And if we go down, they lose their jobs, right? That'll definitely happen. There'll be loss of jobs. Good, hard-working local people. And the players are getting paid a lot of money to play on that pitch. And to me, if they're tossing it off in training, not trying in games, and play crap all season and not giving any love or passion to the shirt, that's got no to do with Andre Brianwright.
Do you think they'd behave like that under Neil Warnock?
But they did under Darren Moore. They did under Mark Fotheringham.
Same question.
Well,
that's the manager's
it's the players.
Job.
It's Jay. There's been 7 managers in the last 3 years at Town. And there's only one manager that's managed to command any respect, and that's because he had 8 promotions on his CV, and he told the players off like an old granddad. But I'm sorry, the players have got to take responsibility.
They do.
Jay.
They do. They have to take some. They have to take some. But it's both.
Brian Wright has made mistakes. He has, and obviously so did Darren Moore. But I've watched the same group of players now for 3 years, because it's basically been the same squad, had a few additions, and they've just got worse every season. Worse. That was going
to be my question, Steve. I think Jay's covered it really. Like the next one, would it have been the same under a different manager? I listened to Brighton Writer's comments afterwards as well, and he, like you say, he spoke about players leaving early. He spoke about a lack of unity. You've mentioned there about players sort of tossing it off on the training ground and not bothering, and not putting the effort in, tracking back in games. Would that have been the same under any manager, or is there managers that, like you said, like Jay mentioned, Warnock? Would it have been different under Warnock?
It would have been. Yeah, it would have. It was different under Warnock, but Warnock's a very special case of manager, isn't he? He's the there's no other manager like Neil Warnock in the English Football League. Under 6 different managers, and they've come from all over Britain or abroad. They've tossed it off. They've disrespected the fan base. They've relegated us now to a division we've not played in for 12 years. And you know what? Some of them are in the summer, they won't be bothered because they'll go get new clubs and they'll go and some of them might get paid better, but they don't deserve to be paid better because they're not good enough. They're just not good enough.
I can tell you another manager it didn't happen under, Carlos Corberán.
Yeah, but he did at the start of Carlos Corberán. Because we lost 7-0 to Blackburn.
Yeah, but he sorted it out.
He sorted it out, Jay, because he had no other option but to sort it out. Brian Wright has not even been given a proper transfer window because he were parachuted in too late because we kept with Darren Moore, who couldn't manage a fish bowl in a Thai restaurant.
I think you
know what I mean?
Way too much of a pass. Way too much of a pass. I'm not disputing. I think he did come in too late. Look, you know it better than me, mate. I'm not. But I think to give Andre a kind of a pass. I thought his comments were horrific the other day. Like if that were my manager in day-to-day work, I'd be like, I've got no respect for you. I'm not surprised the players have got no respect for him.
Well, they had no respect for him the moment he turned up because they thought, here we go, here's another manager that I can toss it off with. The only one that I couldn't do that were Neil Warnock, and that was because Neil Warnock he's a special case of a manager, and some of these lads have to realise they're 22, 23, they're in a very privileged position to play football every day, and some of them need telling. They're privileged lives. You know, there's guys behind the scene that work in the offices, in the shop, in the ticket office that have worked there for 10, 12, 13, 15 years that get paid, you know, like us, the average man and woman, a wage, and they work bloody hard all week. And then when it comes to the weekend and the players can't be bothered to turn up to try, you know, it's just ridiculous.
That sort of leads me on to my next question, Steve. Like, what's your situation with out-of-contract players this summer? Can you get rid of some of these players? Are a lot of them under contract, or is there a lot that are out of contract and you can move on?
I think there's 6 that are out of contract, including three academy players, Jordan Rhodes, Behemoth Diarra, and somebody else that I can't remember. But basically, the majority of the squad have got at least another year on the contract. Some have got 2, and some are contracted till 2026. And the problem we've got is half of these players aren't worth out. In fact, they're worth less than nothing.
You think whoever comes in is going to want to move a lot of players on that are under contract? Then you're in a similar situation to what I was talking about earlier with City. There's players there that you're going to have to try and move on.
Yeah, but the problem is, Gav, they're not going to be able to move them on because who's going to come in and buy them? The only people that are worth anything, a little bit of anything, are Nichols, Ellick, Radoni, and Thomas. Rest, nobody's going to come in for Radulovic. Paid 800 grand for him in January. I've seen nothing of Radulovic to see whether he's good enough at this level, even at League One level.
Have you seen Andres? Have you seen Andres removed Huddersfield from his Instagram socials? And
no, I haven't seen that. But I tell you what, Jay, he's not going to be here. He's not going to be here next season.
That was the next bit as well. Like, is
sorry, guys, I'm not giving you a chance here, mate. You carry on.
No, that was it. Jay's nailed it again. Like, the players need to go. From what Jay said there, looks like Andre's not sticking around. Do you believe he'll be gone as well?
Yeah, he'll be gone. He's not. There's no way he was going to manage in League One. I mean, even if by some miracle and we get a 17-goal swing on Saturday, which ain't going to happen, by the way. But even if we did, he still ain't staying next season. The club's a mess. Behind the scenes, a mess. Some of the players are a disgrace because there are good pros there like Ollie Turton, Johnny Hogg, Matty Pearson, Tom Lees, who, the best players, but they give a damn. They respect the club and they respect the people enough to actually pull the shirt on with a bit of pride and give some effort. And then you've got some other players that just couldn't give a crap. And that's what hurts. It's been coming for a while for relegation, so I'm not shocked. I'm not angry. I'm not upset. What I am angry about is though that some of these players have not given a certain amount of respect to play for the football club properly and try, and that's what hurts. And that's why we need to get rid of them. Get rid of I'm going to say it, knobheads. Get rid of the knobheads and get some good pros in League One, because that's what you need in League One.
That squad needs cleansing, doesn't it?
It needs cleansing. It needs whatever other words you want to use, and I think Brian Wright don't want to have that battle next season about, he don't know the league. He can go back to Germany and Europe and get a far better job with less stress for more money. So why would he stay at Huddersfield Town Football Club? What we need now is a proper League One English manager to come in and sort it all out and say to Nagel, put the money on the table. Let me go and buy the players I want to go buy to get you out of this division, because otherwise we're going to be stuck in this league for a long time.
Well, that's one thing.
To start that chat.
Sorry?
It's probably a bit early to start that chat. As much as I really want to go down the route of who next, let's wait. Let's wait and save that until it happens.
And I know,
if you've got so much to happen, then you're going to want to get on with it quickly, aren't you? From a fan's point of view, if there's a lot to sort out, as you're saying there is, then you need to. Kevin and the board need to get moving quickly, don't they? And get a plan together for next season.
Well, do you know what I'd do, guys? I'd say if that is true about Brian Wright, Jay, which I have no reason to disprove you or whatever.
Just what's in on social.
You've seen that, mate. What I'd do is I'd be having a meeting with him tomorrow. Are you taking training, Andre, or do you want to go back to Germany? And if he says I want to go back, right, Johnny, get in, take the team, sort the knobheads out, just play the kids on Saturday. And if we get, but I know it affects you, Jay, but I can't be watching players that don't try. So if we get absolutely rinsed 19-0 and he plays the kids, it gives the kids an idea of what Championship football's all about, and Worthington's in charge, and then you look to get a manager in. But we cannot come to the end of June and not have a plan. We can't mess about. Got to get on with it, and if we don't get on with it, my God, it's going to be a bad season next year.
The thing is, though, Stephen, you're right. And you made a really point earlier when you're saying, there's a worry you could stay in League One. That League One division for me next season is probably the toughest out of all them leagues. The teams that are coming up, the teams are coming down. Listen, there's no guarantee, and you know far better than me. There's no guarantee Huddersfield will even be challenging it, not at the right end of the table, but for the playoffs is what you need to be doing. And that's a real concern, because you're right, you need a plan together and you need to get your house in order, because for you to be competitive at the right end of the table, that needs to be done ASAP, because there's such a risk that you are going to stagnate in that league, which ultimately could, that's not good enough, is it?
Well, by the end of May, Lou, put it this way, by the end of May, we need to have sold the players that we're going to sell and get, collectively maybe 6 million for them, hopefully.
Struggle.
Right. Well, whatever, 5 million, whatever we can get from Chris. Basically, I don't for 5 million collectively for the ones that I've named.
It wasn't the financial side that I was more thinking. It's the timing, because nothing kind of really can happen in terms of actual transfers through the window until mid-June, when the window itself doesn't open until usually around the 9th or 10th of June.
Yeah, but they're always talking, Chris. You know what I mean?
A lot of people won't necessarily do their business as early as Sam would like.
No, I accept that. But by May, I'd have a list. This is who we're selling, and we're going to try as damned hardest, as close to as soon as the window opens, to sell them. And then we need to spend 8 million at least on this squad. And what I'd do is...
you need a manager in place before you can do that, Steve.
Well, yeah, because that's the first part.
And the thing is, they don't even have a chief scout.
No, we don't have a chief scout. We've just advertised for a chief scout, which is
over there.
Which is absolutely mental.
I genuinely thought about going for it. Like, I was looking at it, I was thinking...
No, Jay, don't do it, mate.
Could you imagine Jay being chased out?
No, I don't want Jay. As much as I like Jay as a lad, I can't have you as chief scout of my football.
Please,
no.
make it happen.
And then we need
nonsense. Jay is a qualified scout. Let's just put that out there to people that have no idea. I think we're just being mental. Jay,
Yeah, he's also a Leeds United fan, so it makes it doubly.
It don't work like that when you're in professional football, Steve. Like
I know you're professional. I know you're professional.
Aside, you know, you put that aside.
Yeah, I know you're professional, but anyway, Matt Cartwright, he needs to either prove his worth or he needs to go. And there's just a lot of changes needed, boys. Like it's. I didn't think I was going to get as cross as what I am, but I am. You've riled me up, and it's really like just annoyed me now that we're in this position when we just didn't need to be, and there's been so many mistakes that there's too many to mention, but it needs fixing, and I'm actually quite worried for the future of the football club as a whole, really.
Pros and cons, mate. You know, you get to visit the beautiful city of Lincoln, and on the other hand, this would never have happened if you hadn't got rid of the cow. If you hadn't got rid of the Cowleys. Jay, can we move on to Leeds quickly, desperately? Go on, talk quick before Steve puts through the screen.
I mean, look, obviously Friday wasn't good in the slightest. I think if you want to see my kind of instant reaction to it, go back and watch the review that me and Brownie did the other day, because I was extremely cross about the performance, to put it mildly.
I'm not saying like that.
I had a Jay in the group chat all weekend.
Yeah. Well, for me, I always try and deal with certainly losses without the emotion of being a fan. I try and analyze the game. I try and be, I try and remind myself that there's two teams in the game, both are trying to win the game. Things can happen sometimes in matches. We've had a bit of a run which has seen a downturn in form, but there's been, I would say, most of them games we've either been in, or, the Sunderland game at home, we had 2 clear penalties. The Blackburn game at home, we probably should have won that, and we would win it 9 times out of 10. Friday night wasn't like that. Friday night was an extreme version of a fall apart from the players, from Daniel Farkas, stylistically, tactically, we got it wrong, and he got it wrong. And we got it wrong in the moment where we needed to get it right the most. This season, on most occasions, we've actually got it right when we needed to. Think about the big games throughout the season, the run that we went on at the beginning of 2024. We'd always overcome them moments of adversity. We went to Middlesbrough earlier on this week in bad form and managed to carve out 3 points. Again, we'd shown that we'd been able to get over that and deal with the hurdle. And Friday was just everything that you wouldn't want to see from a Leeds perspective. It was poor. It was bad.
What do you think's happened, Jay? Because it's only a month or so ago that you were on this pod and you were ultra confident. I don't see us losing a game, and I see us winning the league, and we've reined Leicester in. And what's happened?
Yeah, I mean, the international break weren't good for us. It weren't good in the slightest. I definitely think the Wales boys have had a hard time kind of getting back up for the demands. The performances from Rodon, James and Ampadu and Rodon particularly, given how important they are to the team, the drop-off has been massive. It's been really noticeable. And throughout 2024, even when we've not played particularly well, in terms of like going forward, maybe not being at a scintillating best, we've always looked like we were just going to box the team out of the game. Defensively, we were so strong. We weren't even conceding chances, let alone goals. And now all of a sudden we're shipping goals in all over the place. I mean, we've conceded 7 in the last 2. And before that, from open play, I think we'd conceded 1 before the Blackburn game in the whole of 2024. I remember you saying about
it was only set piece goals you were conceding.
That were it. So, it has been alarming. We've had injuries as well. Gruev didn't come back from the international break. He's kind of been shoehorned back into the team. Rutter, who is arguably, him and Somerville are his most attacking threats, and where all the creativity comes from, really. It comes through Rutter. He had a hernia operation during the international break, and he's not looked the same since. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that you can put it down to. The other night, people didn't want to wear it, but it was the truth. We missed Bamford extremely. Earlier on in the game, where we needed the ball to stick up front and alleviate some pressure from us, win some free kicks, the ball was just bouncing straight back at us. Pirro couldn't hold anything up. So it's just been a number of things. And I do think, we have to remember this team is the second youngest in the division. Only Sunderland have got a younger average age than our team. A lot of these boys have not been in this position before, where they've got the huge kind of fan base collective just kind of peering over them, expecting them to go on and win every game. And plus, I think you combine into the fact that the league is almost balancing itself out a little bit. Lou mentioned a few weeks back when I was kind of quite buoyed. He thought there'd be quite a lot of drops of points, and he was spot on, because it's not just been Leeds, up until Leicester fluking one against West Brom, because they really did. They got battered by West Brom that day.
They did.
They should have been dead and buried. And if they had a loss that day, they'd have been on the same kind of same points as us now. So the Ipswich are still dropping points. I think actually Ipswich have only got one more point over the last 5 than we have. They go into the game tomorrow night. If they lose that game, we've come out of the game week where we beat Middlesbrough and lost to QPR with more points than them. It's unbelievable. So it's definitely not over as of yet. If Coventry, I don't expect Coventry to win the game tomorrow. If I'm honest, I think they're on terrible form. They've got horrible injuries all over the pitch. But pressure does funny things to teams, and Ipswich go there tomorrow because they didn't win the other night. They go there knowing that they have to. They have to win, really. A point might be good enough, it might be, but really they have to win to fully make sure that they're comfortable going into that last game. I don't expect any favours from Town, not because of the rivalry and all the rest of it. I just think that Huddersfield will...
We're crap, Jay. We're crap.
All the issues that we've spoke about, are not going to then all of a sudden eradicate themselves between now and Saturday.
Leicester's won 3-0, by the way. I don't know if you've seen. So champions of the...
For me, once Leicester got past West Brom, they were kind of... They had a reignitement. I think if they'd have lost that day, I think the pressure would have been real on them.
Especially because of how they played. Because I know exactly what you're saying. I was in a pub in Walsall watching that game. And now they beat West Brom that day. I will never know. And like you say, if they seem to get a resurgence after that, it's like they knew they'd been fortunate, and obviously they've gone on from there and secured promotion.
Well, guys, if they'd have lost that day, we'd have been 2 points ahead of them,
right?
And they would have been going into the Southampton game in a completely different mindset. It's a different world. It's exactly the same as what I said on Friday. Us beating QPR and having that gap on Ipswich meant all the world of difference for them going into that whole game. And I know they still only came out with the point, but there's a very real chance that they'll lose that game the other night if we'd have won on Friday. It does make that much of a difference.
The only thing I'd say, Jay, that's really not in your favour is that if they get a point tomorrow, which is I think the way for them to look at it is, yes, they go win the game, and then it's done, innit? It's done really and dusted. But if they get a point tomorrow, which is the minimum they should be looking to get, they know going into Saturday they've got the advantage, really, because I know that you're at home, but that puts more pressure on you. Southampton, I know that they're like playoffs, so they're not going to risk players, but they're still a good side. Where Ipswich are going up against us, who have just been relegated and can't defend for toffee. So I do think there's more pressure on you Saturday, particularly if Ipswich get a point.
Well,
definitely.
I think the opposite, because ultimately we have to win on Saturday regardless. I think if Ipswich take something tomorrow, I think the pressure for us going into Saturday is probably quite minimal, because the likelihood is we'll win, but it won't matter anyway, because they probably are going to beat you. I think given if they lose tomorrow night, the pressure ramps up on Leeds massively, because we actually go into Saturday with it in our hands. Yeah. If Ipswich lose tomorrow, it's in Leeds' hands because of the goal difference. We're pretty much, we are guaranteed up.
Yeah, but you have to win. The pressure is on the point I'm trying to make is that if they get a point tomorrow, they necessarily don't have to beat us, because if you lose, they've gone up by a point, haven't they?
It doesn't matter either way, does it?
No, but. Yeah, I know, but all I'm saying is there is pressure on you to win that game. You have to win, like you say. A draw's not good enough.
I think the pressure is more on us if we go into Saturday with it in our hands.
Yeah.
Because we know we've got it to lose. If we go into Saturday thinking, well, they're probably going to lose against... they're probably going to beat Huddersfield anyway, and it won't matter. The likelihood is that the shackles will be off a little bit more, and we'll probably get to 90 minutes with us winning the game anyway.
Does Bamford miss in the game?
No, Bamford should be back. He had a bruised knee and he would touch and go whether he would play on Friday. Farker came out and said that if the game had been on Saturday, it'd have made it, but because it was on Friday, he didn't. He travelled with the squad. It wasn't on the bench, but it was sat on the bench. If that makes sense.
Because I agree with you watching that QPR. I watched it in Scotland, and me and my mate were on about it, and I totally accept and agree with that. What you say, that Bamford does make a massive difference to how you play.
Huge difference.
Your game plan changes completely when he's not on the pitch, which is to me mental. But I agree with what the reasons you give.
Steve, with Perot's the 9, you might as well have 10 players, and that's not being disrespectful to Perot. He's just not that kind of player. I've said it before. I've said it time and time again on this pod. He was the wrong signing for the tactic, for the style. He should never have come in, really, if he was ever going to be the competitor to Bamford in this system. I mean, he didn't start the season as the 9. I've got some questions with regards to Farker for what he did at the weekend. I mean, as a fan and as somebody analysing the game, I'm allowed to use hindsight. He's not. And at the weekend, he got it massively wrong on Friday. Looking into that game, he started Byram. He should have started Gray there. He had no control in the midfield. He should have started Mara. He should have started Cooper at the back and brought in Ampadu into the midfield. He shouldn't have started Perot. Like, all these things, you could see a mile off. And I mean, not to hark back to the hero that is Bielsa, but I've saw games under Bielsa where after 20 minutes, he knew he'd got it wrong and he hooked players off. He hooked Calvin Phillips on being on a yellow card after 20 minutes once. I'll never forget it. He hooked Pascal Stroik exactly the same in a particular game dead early because he knew he'd got it wrong. And afterwards, he'd be like, it's not their fault. It was my fault. It's not the player's fault. I got it wrong for this game and this style. And that's what Daniel Farker did on Friday. And he waited until after QPR had made subs. There were 3-0 up. And he waited until the 60th minute to make changes. I mean,
that's what surprised me, Jay. And I'll go back to a question I've got for you as well. But that's what I found really confusing as to why he made the changes when he did, and still expect to change a game around when the game had gone. I didn't understand the rationale behind that. But you know what, Ian kind of is kind of said something similar to what I was going to ask in terms of being too loyal to certain players. Probably for me, expanding on it a bit. Do you think that it's come to a situation? And it's hard to criticise because of the points tally you've got, and in a normal season, you go up as champions. But with a bit of, I don't know, reluctance, possibly stubbornness to change a squad and rotate it to give other players the opportunity and get proper match fitness, match experience in this, seems to have just maybe caught you out at the wrong time of the season.
I think there's definitely something in that. I think the likes of Charlie Cresswell, who would have probably been a good debutant at points this season, if he'd have had more game time. I think that's a fair comment. I don't think he fully trusts his bench. I think he looks at the bench and he sees Joe Gellart. I don't think he fully rates him. I think at the weekend we had Charlie Crew on the bench, who's never made a senior appearance yet. He's a kid. There isn't a lot there outside of the main core of players that he can turn to and change games. Joseph obviously has come through this season and developed well. Jayden Anthony, I mean, he's not put any minutes really into Jayden Anthony. Jayden Anthony started away at Stoke in December, I want to say. Had a really poor game. It was Gruev's first game as well. And he had a really poor game that day and he's not started since, apart from Chelsea in the Cup. He started against Chelsea in the Cup. And it's like he's not trusted him since. I don't think he really wanted Jayden Anthony. We took him as part of the deal that took Sinisterra to Bournemouth on deadline day. And I think he kind of was like, yeah, he'd probably be able to do it, but the others are my guys, really. And I think, I definitely think there is an element to that, and it is catching up with us because we're not able to be diverse, dynamic, adaptable enough to change these certain games. I mean, Lyndon Dykes, we all know what you're going to deal with. Stick Liam Cooper up against him and put Ampadu into that midfield battle. But no, we don't. We go with Archie Gray. Archie's great, and he's going to be a prodigious talent. He's a generational talent. I'm absolutely sure of it. But the game overran him.
Courses for courses sometimes, isn't it?
It is, mate. It absolutely is.
But it looks like he's needed a rest for a good few weeks whenever I've seen him. Like, you've got Kamara, who's played in big moment games, European competitions, been title winner at Rangers. Yeah. He's the kind of player, a bit of composure that you need. And Archie's not, been unbelievable, but he's not got that experience to lean on. And you've got somebody like Kamara who can do that job for you.
It were crying out for it on Friday. I mean, I'm no manager, but I like the tactical style of the game. But ultimately, I'm just a casual fan, and I could see it a mile off. You could see it after 10 minutes. The ball was going back and forward between Ronan and Ampadu, and then they were pinging it long. But that's because Archie weren't going short to receive the ball, and he that's not his game. Whereas Kamara dictates the pace. We were crying out for it, and it does worry me a little bit that Daniel Farke can't see that or chooses to ignore it. And I will just say quickly, like earlier on this season, he was very, very kind of with chess, very almost aggressive in a post-match, in a pre-match press conference with regards to Perrault. How he said, "I was a striker. I know my strikers." Yeah, he came out and he said that, and he said Perrault is not a 9, he's a 10, and Gio Rutter's the 9. He then, after back-to-back losses in December, had to come out and kind of fall on his own sword a little bit, but he did it by bringing Perrault out and bringing Bamford in, because then he could kind of negate this argument in that, well, Gio's now a 10 because Pat's the 9, and he's the out-and-out 9, which makes sense, fine. But now since Bamford's been out injured, or if Bamford's needed a rest, Perrault's gone back into the 9. So he vehemently said earlier on this season that Perrault's not a 9, but now he is a 9. So and that worries me, because I would much prefer a manager that stays fully strong to his opinions and his beliefs, not because the fans have said that he shouldn't do it. And yeah, it worries me a little bit. By the way, I still think he's the man for this season. I still think he's a man for next season. Because who more qualified are you going to get than Daniel Farke to get you promoted, especially in the second season? If we do deal with this season with a little bit of perspective, if we'd have not had August and the start to the season that we'd have already been promoted. We'd have already been promoted. We're on 90 points, for Christ's sake. It's only happened once in history that a team has not gone up with 90 points in the top 2 spots. That was Sunderland in 1995. It's a freak. Ipswich are the freak. They are the freak. They absolutely shouldn't be where they are, but they are, and they deserve it. And if they go up as in place of us in that top 2, they deserve it, man. They absolutely deserve it.
It's so difficult, because like I say, you put in perspective, but you're in this here and now, aren't you? Where you're in that moment to get promoted, despite everything that goes around it, you're still within that chance to do it. And few weeks down the line, depending on what the situation is, you go, oh wow, it's an unbelievable season. But now you look at it and you're like, you just got to do the job now. Got to get
what's really cost us this season is from 17th down to 24th, the teams in the bottom 7 or 8. We've only done the double over one of them, and that's Plymouth. All the other teams in that area of the table, we've dropped points to, and several of them we've lost to. We lost to Birmingham. We drew against Sheffield Wednesday. We drew against Huddersfield. We drew against Rotherham away when we were out that night. We lost to one of the other ones at Blackburn. We lost to Blackburn at home. This goes on and on. They're the points that have cost us.
That's what you've lost it.
Because we've done the double over Ipswich. We've done the double over Leicester. I mean, it's unbelievable, but it is what it is. Once the playoffs come around, because I do think it'll likely be playoffs. I think it all hinges on tomorrow's game. And we go again. I'll have a totally different chat with you about it if we go into Saturday with it in our hands. That'll be oh God, I'd feel sick thinking about it, but that's miles away yet. If we go into the playoffs, please. Sorry, just to finish it. If we go into the playoffs, at the end of the day, we have the best team in the playoffs, so we should have some confidence to take into them playoffs that we can do it. It's a shootout.
Yeah.
Please do the usual Leeds mad thing and sack Farke 20 minutes before the playoff final. That'd be magic.
I think Daniel Farke's got a job at Leeds regardless of what happens in this next 2-3 weeks. Yeah, I'd be absolutely stunned if anything happens with Farke, and I don't think it should either.
No, it would be ludicrous to act him now, regardless of say whatever happens. I think.
I think he should go to the playoff final, go to penalties, and Farke resigns before the final kicks happens.
You just concentrate on your own shower, you. All right? Let's not get involved in the Leeds shower. I do think to myself sometimes, before you do wrap up, Chris, that, as stressful and as upsetting as it can be to finish 3rd in the league, at least we're not in a relegation battle. At least we're not getting relegated. At least we're not playing Mansfield next season. So I'm all right,
Looking forward to meeting Nigel Clough.
and I'm sure he's looking forward to playing you two down there. Right, let's wrap it up. We've been on for over 2 hours. It's been a bit of a mammoth show tonight, but a big thank you to all our usual panelists in Steve Downs and Gareth Walker, Lewis Sale, and Jason Book. A big thank you as well to Rizwan Mohammed, who joined us right at the start of the show, and good luck to him and to Bradford Town in the Northern Counties East League playoff final. That's at 3 o'clock at Bradford Town on Saturday afternoon. So Leeds fans can get yourself over there after your disappointment at Elland Road. We will go on then, Luke. Go on. You got one more thing?
We've got a special mention, haven't we, Chris, before we go?
Yes, a very big happy birthday. We're not going to sing it. We're not. A very big happy birthday to our very own Stephen Brown. It's why he's not here. It's his birthday today. So happy
52.
birthday, 52. Oh, that's how old parenting makes him feel.
That's how Gray will be when Leeds lose in the playoffs. Anyway,
don't start him off because he
will
like
go.
yeah he will go. He will.
happy
go.
birthday, Brownie. Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday, Brownie. Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, Brownie. So yes, that is that. If you can make it to Abbey Fest on Sunday, you can come down and see us guys. We'll be down there as
Come
well.
say hello.
And you can watch. We can watch James Hansen run absolute rings around a blind man. And on that bombshell, it's time to end the show. Big thank you, as always, to our usual panelists. Thanks for all your comments. If you haven't already, do like and subscribe to our social media channels. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. But from myself and the rest of the lads, we will see you next week for the roundup.